My name is Patrick McCray for Jewel T. Sane Presents, and I'm joined by.
Alan Gallant for Jewel T. Sains Presents.
Now, that is legitimately funny. I can laugh at that at the beginning and
Yes,
not feel ooky.
there you go.
So here we are. We're talking about the Royal Tenenbaums as part of our Gene Hackman retrospective, and can I just say I'm so mad and hurt and angry that we have to have this. That I miss him.
Yes,
I mean, I miss a world with Gene Hackman, and we've
yeah.
been doing this for a while, but we haven't just talked about how much we like him.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the first movie I knew of his was The French Connection. Uh,
Wow.
mm, yeah, but I didn't see it until years afterwards because I was only 11 years old, and
Yeah.
it's not one of those
Rather mature.
11-year-old to see. But
Yeah.
I didn't see it till I was probably 15, I guess,
Okay.
around 1975, and it was really. I'm just impressed with the guy. People struggle with, and he's different things to different people, so people struggle with how to define his ethos as an actor. Although he is, for me, it's, he's pretty take no prisoners, and according to other people who love and respect working with him, he is that way. He didn't suffer fools. He was very straightforward. He was always prepared, even if he wasn't sure that this was a film that was going to do anything. And he did also have sometimes a rather dark visage, about things. But I don't know if, I mean, he had a stint in the army. He was a starving actor in New York. He roomed at various times with Dustin Hoffman and
He's a
Robert Duvall.
he's a
Yeah,
Meisner. He's a Meisner guy, right?
he is. Yeah, but I don't think he would. Whenever he spoke, he wouldn't cling to any particular style. He didn't like to be identified as an acolyte.
Okay.
No, at all. He was his own man, and that's another thing that people sort of got in terms of an impression from him. But he also scared the hell out of some people because he was completely committed. He could be intense, and he's one of the people that Denzel Washington respects. Obviously, for obvious reasons, they had, and I think he respected Denzel Washington as well. They had some rather intense scenes.
What was that, Crimson Tide?
Yes, Crimson
Yeah.
Tide, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a really good movie, and really showcased Hackman's sort of, I hate to call it an alpha ethos, but it kind of is. I mean, there is no such thing as an alpha in at
No,
least,
in nature.
yeah.
That's a
It's
fictitious
just
invention.
but he had a dominant nature, or at least an impulse to be dominant, to be in charge, and all
Of
those.
course, at the same time, that's who he was being cast as.
Absolutely, but he also,
I mean, nobody
absolutely,
nobody cast Gene as a nebbish, but
no,
I'm sure he would have been a great one.
yes, but he was also very easily, uh, he could easily shift into vulnerability even within those roles, some of those roles. Um, I particularly enjoy him in The Birdcage because he's just absolutely. There is no "I will not do this" in the guy. He will
Yeah,
do what is required of the role, regardless of whether it makes him look like a
I
fool or
I
not.
have I've seen La Cage aux Folles. I've not seen The Birdcage. He plays one of the parents,
No, he plays the
or,
senator.
or the
Yeah, yeah. He plays the. Yeah, he does. He plays the parent of the group. Yeah, the
and so what is he like? What is that
Well,
character?
he's absurd. He's a pompous ass, but at the same time, he tries to be really nice to everybody, and he is. And he ends up, of course, because they don't want to be, once they realize they're in a compromising position, and he's a senator. He doesn't want to be seen by the press, and there's other things going on in his life, and potential scandals. So he dresses up in drag, and yeah, he's in drag in this movie. Absolutely.
I gotta say how in love I am with my friends because they kept that
Yes.
twist from me. My
Yeah.
mother, my friends, they all kept that twist from me for God knows how many years. It was a
Yeah.
30-year-old movie, 35
Yeah.
year old movie.
Well, it's 30 anyway. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Well,
It,
good on them.
yeah. But he's great. He totally commits to this, and he's a fish out of water. But at the same time, he's like going, wow, you're a really good dancer. He's doing stuff like that, and so he's responding to the moment. He's enlivening the script. He's filling the moments with sort of vivacity and
Well, and as a callback to last week, he's only acting for the director of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf.
mm-hmm,
This is Mike Nichols' movie,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Uh,
So
I mean, I think he respected Mike Nichols too, because Mike Nichols was also a stage director, and of course Hackman started his career on the stage, as did Duvall, as did Hoffman. Um,
what's missing is a great Twilight Zone episode starring a young Gene Hackman.
yeah, that would be
That
cool.
should exist. It should be one
Right.
of the 1 hour
Yeah,
Twilight Zones
it's like
nobody's seen.
it would be his Boo Radley, like Robert Duvall had, or something
Yes,
like that. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, my first encounter with him was, given my age and so on, was Superman.
Mm-hmm. He's brilliant.
And I walked away from that movie I like Christopher Reeve, but as a Lex Luthor fan,
Yeah,
for me, I became a huge Lex Luthor fan,
he had all
and I
the great. He had all the best situations, and he also had all the humor in it, and and having a sidekick as he did was just absolutely brilliant, and they played off each other brilliantly and completely honestly. Everything about it was honest, even his slyness, even his mendacity. It was all coming from a very honest place.
there's so many of the lines in that movie that are funny, and it's full of funny lines.
It is.
It's full of funny. It's a comedy as much as it is anything else,
Yeah.
and not a campy one, but an appropriate
No,
character-driven one.
it has. They took, I think they took a great deal of the lightheartedness of the '60s comic books,
Yes,
because
they did.
they were very much that way. They were very lighthearted. They were designed for a wide audience, so they weren't dark and
Well, considering when they started working on the movie, the
yeah,
'60s comic books were pretty recent.
they were. Yeah, they were.
It was like the Batman TV show was an accurate representation of what the Batman comic was like at that
At
time,
that time, yes,
which
absolutely.
in the shadow of Neil Adams gets lost.
It's
But
true, but it was it was hijinks time.
sure,
Yeah,
flying
I
bat
mean, it was
labs and
Batmite,
sure,
all this stuff.
which I wish they had gotten. I wish they had gotten John Houseman to play him. Just don't have a
Batmite.
weird. No, you know who it would have? It would have been Sammy.
Uh-huh.
Because all the Rat Pack wanted to be on Batman.
Uh-huh.
But back to the earlier diversion, which was just Gene Hackman and Superman.
Yes.
So many lines that he can milk a scene where he had only one word, Otisburg, Otisburg. That one I love. Do you want to see a long arm, Otis? Do you want to see a very long arm?
Yeah. It's true. He established Lex Luthor as being, a cigar chomping con artist, first and foremost. And then the danger part. Okay, yeah, that's there too, because I have access to all of this stuff and all these people. But
People complained about it was no longer a scientific genius. Yes, he was.
yes, he was.
Yes, he was. He just was a scientific genius who had this other side.
He did. He was a scientific genius that did not have the sartorial sensibility of a scientific genius.
No, he did not. The busts with all the different toupees.
Yes.
Am I misremembering that, or didn't he have that?
Yeah, I believe he did. Yes.
And then in that movie, this is what's so fantastic, is that he can turn it off, and suddenly he's very, very chilling.
Mm-hmm.
This old diseased mind, as he's putting the kryptonite on him. And God, this moment where he interacts with a wristwatch,
Yeah.
and it's where she says, "Lex, my mother's in Hackensack," and he just
Not anymore.
and he and but it's
But it's
serious,
chilling. It is. It is.
and you can tell that was a moment that was written to be funny.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
Hmm.
And Hackman,
Just went
he
straight.
reverses all expectations.
See, I recognize it as being chilling, but I still laughed at it first time I saw it.
Yeah,
I did.
yeah.
Because he played it both ways. I mean, it was the timing of it was playing both ways, even though the attitude was, you're right, he's just bone cold. He's just bone chillingly cold in that.
And that's how we see how he can make these decisions. Oh, no, my God, a line right up there with "No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die"
Yeah.
is I just forgot it. Oh, damn it, it's so good. It's oh, yeah. Is that how a twisted mind like yours gets its cakes, Luther? By planning the deaths of innocent millions? No, by causing the deaths of innocent millions.
It's like,
Wow,
yeah,
and he's
yeah,
serious.
yeah, absolutely.
He's serious. And you know that he's contract. I don't know how the Golan and Globus talked him into being in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace.
They probably paid
Um,
him a lot of money.
they had, I mean, that had to be where most of the budget went.
That was
But
yeah, it was a check, I'm
because I
sure.
would say that's the low point in his
It
career.
is.
He
It
even has really
totally
shitty
is. And
costumes in it.
whether or not it was fun to make for some of the actors or not, it was the absolute trash point of the series,
It
obviously.
it was, and it had actors I love. I like Mariel Hemingway.
Yeah.
She's a doll. She's great to see, and but nonetheless, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, but speaking of which, if you're going to replace Gene Hackman, very underrated actor Robert Vaughn, who basically replaces him in Superman 3
Great. Yeah.
as the villain. And Vaughn is a guy who I can see being in almost any Gene Hackman part and being fine.
Yes, and Vaughn also was he was an intellectual. I don't know if you know this about Robert Vaughn, but he actually was invited onto firing line
Yes, famously.
and to debate the Vietnam War, and did a fabulous job. I thought he won the debate. I thought that Bill Buckley was extremely gracious because
Buckley respected the
he
hell
could
out of
be
him.
completely condescending to his guests.
In
Uh,
Cruising Speed,
yeah,
with one of Buckley's books, he has a long essay about Robert Vaughn. That
yeah,
he's very, it's at the time of that debate,
right.
so I think it was probably his last word.
Hmm.
Uh, but he was very. It had some sort of. I think maybe Vaughn was thinking about running for something at
Yeah,
the
at one
time.
point, other people were thinking of wanting him to run. I know that for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I think
Senate.
the essay was called the
Yeah,
Candidate from Uncle,
yeah,
and which smacked of damning faint praise. But
yes.
then when you get into the essay, it's almost like Buckley wanted to tear him a new one, and he just
He
couldn't
could.
bring himself to.
Well, he also really couldn't legitimately do it because he was an excellent debater. I mean, he was making excellent points, whether you agreed or disagreed with him, which of course Bill Buckley didn't
Yeah,
disagree with a lot of what he said. But he also made some concessions during that debate as well. So I knew right then when I saw that for the first time, many years later, and it's on YouTube for anybody that wants
yeah.
to look at it. Just type in Buckley, Vaughn, and you're going to find it. But as soon as I saw him make some of these concessions or pause here and there, in his way, like he has an invisible pipe in his mouth or
That's
something.
a chairman. Yeah,
I knew that he had respect for this guy, grudgingly or otherwise.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Well,
so
I
yeah,
huge respect for Bill Buckley.
Vaughn was very good at villainy as well as heroism.
Speaking of villainy, a friend of mine had a statement about Buckley when he died, and it was so chillingly prophetic. I can't even wrap my mind around it.
Mm.
And he said, "Patrick, the Republican Party is about to lose its mind,"
Yeah.
and it's exactly what
What?
happened.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't think Buckley was some massive hand on the wheel or something like
No,
that.
no, no, but
But
um, he wasn't intellectual for conservatism. That's what he was, no doubt.
and a good one. Did you read? Have you read any of his son's books?
No.
They're good. They're very good.
Yeah.
I recommend Little Green Men especially because it stars William F. Buckley. The
Okay.
character's called something else, and
Yeah.
he's the CIA has this
It's
thing where
clearly
they're
him.
they're
Yeah.
abducting people and convincing them that there are aliens.
Aliens.
I think so. It stays in the zeitgeist,
Hmm.
and there's pressure on for defense contracting and things like that.
Yes.
And they normally stick with rednecks, no one famous,
Right.
but there's a huge fuck up, and they
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 just
they
make
kidnap Buckley,
Yeah.
and Buckley becomes a convert
Yeah.
to all of this stuff, and it's great.
Yeah.
So that's the Royal Tenenbaums, folks. We hope you
Yeah.
enjoyed that trenchant retrospective. We've been going for 15 minutes now, and I
Yeah.
haven't mentioned the movie at all. So right before the broadcast on the cab ride over, we were talking about how this is the most the waspiest movie maybe ever made, with the most privileged Upper East Side.
It's totally
Uh,
New York in that respect, in that particular vein. It's like Gramercy or on the edge of Gramercy until the debt gets too much and you have to sell the house. That kind of thing. This is the kind of family that they are.
and
Obviously,
I don't know a lot. I don't know a lot about Wes Anderson. Um, so I wonder if he comes from that culture.
I don't know. I do know that he loves he's one of those sort of off the beam kind of directors who loves stories that aren't pat, that aren't formulaic or what people expect.
From what I've seen, I haven't seen all of his films, but they all feel like they deal with American aristocracy.
Uh,
So, or an American aristocrat is in there to one extent or another.
Sometimes, yes, I think that's true of many of his films. He, however,
But he
my
doesn't have a mate line in there.
no, I mean he's been going for almost 30 years now. So, Rushmore is one movie that a lot of people know.
Yeah.
98, Bottle Rocket in 96. Likes Luke and Owen Wilson a lot.
Yeah.
So that's part of his acting company, I guess.
Yeah.
Some directors
Bill
have.
Murray.
Yeah, Bill Murray. Life Aquatic. My favorite other movie of his is Moonrise Kingdom, which is not about aristocracy. It's about a couple of kids
The
trying
campers.
to find themselves. They're
Yeah.
campers, and it's got that absolutely brilliant cast. And it's I'm trying to see here, Moonrise Kingdom. I want to get the Bruce Willis is great in it. It's an atypical role for Bruce Willis,
Yeah.
but a very good one.
Bruce Willis was great in atypical Bruce Willis roles.
He was.
I treasured those.
He was. Yeah. Ed Norton is in it.
Yeah.
Bill Murray, Frances McDormand, Tilda Swinton, Bob Balaban is one of my absolute
I
favorites.
love Bob Balaban. Yeah.
Who is also a company member in the Christopher Guest series.
He's great. I have a lot of problems with Christopher Guest because I think he's really elitist and kind of cruel to his subjects.
Sometimes,
but
yes.
But he still makes me laugh.
Yes.
He really makes me laugh.
Yeah, Guffman is a great film, and I also like Mighty Wind because
I love Mighty Wind.
I was a folkie growing up as part of my musical heritage. So
and some of those folk figures kind of have it coming. New Main Street Singers specifically.
Yes.
But then Mitch and Mickey, they make me cry every time.
It starts out absurd, and then it becomes extremely accessible, vulnerable, and emotional. So
yeah. And the trio are a lot of fun. They don't have the hole in the record. You had to punch your own hole. People would get it wrong, and it would go these weird loops.
Yeah.
The thing about about Guest again. Focusing on Royal Tenenbaums here. The thing about Christopher Guest is that in half of his movies, uh, well, in Mighty Wind, I feel like the targets are kind of deserving of it because there's a little bit of pomposity that
Yes.
they have around
Fair.
that. But the parodies are so sharp, they're so exact. You could hear those songs and
Yes.
completely mistake them for
For real
actual
ones.
songs from the era.
Right. Yes.
And it was weird because if you listen to the commentary, Guest has total contempt for the folk movement. He,
What he has contempt for is the commercial folk movement.
oh
The
yeah,
the
okay,
Kingston trios and like the all of those kind of bands that were popped up when the folk movement was coming out of the Village and other places in New York, in particular, and also like at the Hungry Eye in San
yeah.
Francisco, stuff like that. And there was a lot of commercialism involved. Peter, Paul, and Mary was completely made. They were thrown together by Albert Grossman.
like the monkeys.
Yeah.
Um, the uh, the 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 issue with the places where I kind of want to come to the defense of his subjects. Best in Show
Yes.
was a movie I like a lot, but
Yeah.
but I get very uncomfortable in a few places because it's like these are the dreams of these people,
Yeah.
and they may be weird dreams, but that's okay.
It's almost like
And
punching up, but he's punching down.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
You know.
And Waiting for Guffman, which is a movie, in the theater, you see lots of things you recognize.
Yes.
Uh, the relationship between Corky and Bob Balaban, it was just this total contempt that Balaban's character has for him.
Yeah.
And I feel like there are a number of times in my life where I have been the Corky.
Oh yeah.
I have been the
Yeah.
in creating that same kind of contempt from the uber professional.
Yeah.
But the show, I always land the plane on time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, but that I thought especially, these are people who they do have dreams of theater and are doing their best given the resources and the backgrounds that they have. So back to Royal Tenenbaums. Fine movie. Um, I remember when, and this is going to sound like it's another McCravian tangent, and it's not. Um, I remember in the early days of Prodigy, it was my first chance to talk to fans of other stuff,
Or
and I held court for a while on oh, not Chris Columbus, who's the guy who made John Hughes, and that you know we were at the dawn of not necessarily wokeism, but of ennobling underappreciated cultures,
okay.
and that so many ethnicities and walks and so on were getting proper attention as having mythologies that are worth cherishing and appreciating and recognizing. But the one that was left out, and the argument would be, well, it's lionized everywhere,
Right.
but not quite as in a focused manner, was WASP culture, and that he was very good at taking uh you know bits of WASP mythos, the latchkey kid, the attempt to get home for the holidays, the early unexpected pregnancy, the road trip across the country,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, and really making a definitive examination of their ridiculousness. And I really appreciated that about it. And Royal Tenenbaums does sort of the same thing.
It's the eccentricity of the WASP experience, New York
Oh
WASP
yeah,
experience. Yeah, it's the
which
eccentricity of it. It's definitely. I mean, you see the typical things. You see the struggling kids. You see the divorced parents. You see the professional failures or successes, various kinds. Um, uh,
emotional abuse by silence and distance rather than
ooh,
full on
yeah,
combat.
yeah, 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 yeah. Uh, yeah, the characters are incredible in this. I mean, you've got basically you've got those kind of things going on. Gwyneth Paltrow's character is so unbelievably aggressively passive.
Yes.
Uh,
Well, she's not telling her family anything.
she's not, no, you know, and she knows I think she knows the effect it has.
Sure.
It
I
gives
think
you
that's why she
power.
starts. I think
It,
that's why she starts smoking,
right.
is so she'll have a secret.
Yes. And it empowers her to have secrets and to make sure that the family knows she has secrets or doesn't want to talk about anything.
Yeah.
Um, 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 the characters closest to normal in this, for me,
Yeah.
are Bill Murray of all people and
Yeah.
Danny Glover.
Danny Glover. Yeah.
Yeah, Danny
Yeah.
Glover, the most normal.
They're your normative
Yeah.
figures.
Yes.
And I love them too.
Yes.
It's and there's just enough of them.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the authorial intent will be very hard to read without them, and I almost feel like that's what some of Wes Anderson's later movies occasionally lack.
The sounding board of somebody that the audience can absolutely
Yeah,
identify.
that's
Yeah.
surrogate.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, that's true. Moonrise has that, but yeah,
Yes,
some
it
of his
does.
other movies don't. Um, um, and I can identify with all of these in certain ways, and I think most audiences can, that they're appreciative of this kind of eccentricity, because it's really eccentricity born of, you know, unmet needs and various other things that are going on. Ben Stiller's character is constantly angry. You know,
Yes.
it's almost like he's auditioning for Anger Man in that fake superhero movie that he did a couple of years later.
Fake
Mystery Men.
superhero movie.
Mystery Men.
Mystery Man. Yeah. Mr. Furious.
Yes, Mr. Furious. Uh, Luke and Owen Wilson are, well, I mean, Owen Wilson is Owen Wilson. He's brilliantly Owen Wilson in
Yeah.
almost everything he does. Um, Luke, I think, Luke has more of a variety as an actor than Owen does.
Yeah.
And in this role, I think he does a really good job of having all this sort of longing. You know, even though he was a brilliant tennis player, he lost it all because he lost the love of his life. And so his life after that has been about longing. Um, and of course, he's longing for Gwyneth Paltrow, his adopted sister.
Yes.
And so there's another eccentricity that's right on the edge of, you know, I'm sorry, but this is an inviolate, you know, border that you do not cross.
Yeah.
But however, it is not an inviolate border, except Gwyneth Paltrow says, I guess we're going to have to just be in love in secret.
Yes.
It's that kind of a thing. And but of course everybody knows.
Yeah. The one secret she thinks she's really going to hold on to
it's
is the one that is completely open.
Yeah. And then we have Hackman, who's the titular head of the family, but yet not. He's the outsider,
Yeah.
because Angelica Houston has left him years before, even though they didn't officially get divorced until he gifts her that towards the end of the film. It's about letting go too. I mean, this movie's about that, but it's great to see this pompous, in control, formerly incredibly successful lawyer who's lost everything, try to continue with his preternatural manipulations of everybody. You know, he's a professional bullshitter. But the thing about it is the way that Hackman plays it. It's like you feel for the guy. You don't say, oh, what a reprehensible character he is, although he sometimes does reprehensible things and tells reprehensible lies. You don't feel like, I mean, the whole cancer thing. I mean, my God, you know, who does that? You know, people do
Oh,
it.
Royal Tenenbaum does.
Well, yeah, I mean, people
Yeah.
do it, but it's like, who does that and gets away with it? He gets away with it because he's
That's
not.
one of my favorite scenes in the movie when he first announced it, and it goes back and forth.
Yes, No, I'm not dying. Well, yeah, yes, I'm dying. It's just,
Because she suddenly starts asking the consummate con man questions he never thought anyone would ask.
right. Yeah, and Angelica Houston's great in this movie too. She's sort
Very
of,
good.
she's a steadying influence, but at the same time, she also has some bizarro eccentricities of her own
Mhm.
that have obviously, influenced her kids as well. Just not in the bombastic way of the presence and absence of Royal, who is like impossible to ignore even when he's not there. He's, you know, and that's
I was growing up. I was the Eli Cash.
yeah.
So to a lot of families, kind of similar to this,
Uh-huh.
and it it gets it right every time, and it almost makes me think that Wes Anderson was the Eli Cash
Maybe, maybe,
as
maybe.
this eternal observer,
Mm-hmm.
outsider
Right in
who,
mind, but also his eccentricities have caused him to be something of an addict, and he's a pothead and everything like that. But he's also running away from things, and he literally runs away from things in this movie
yeah,
until he doesn't. And that's the whole thing about this movie
and
too.
then runs into something.
Everybody has a resolution in this movie, and it's
Yeah,
a relatively good one. You know.
it's a movie that's almost built to give these characters, even Mordecai,
Mm-hmm.
a very satisfying resolution.
Yes.
Almost as if he started with those
Mm-hmm.
and then built the movie backwards.
Yeah, and he may have started with character sketches. He may have indeed started with character sketches and had a general sort of environment to put them in, and then went from there. That would not surprise me a bit because they're all really well drawn.
It's a shame when the idea of a Dark Shadows comedy comes along that it was Tim Burton at the wheel and not Wes Anderson.
Anderson, yeah,
The New England Wasps
yeah,
with a weird secret.
yeah, yeah, and he could definitely have played that up, and he could have played it straight with a little bit of comedy in it, and it would have worked just fine.
You got Jason Schwartzman as Barnabas,
Yeah,
and just the
yeah.
coffin lid opens and he's looking up. My name is Barnabas Collins, and it cuts around.
Or he goes, it opens up and there's nothing in the room but a couple of candles, and he's going, oh, jeez, it's so
Yeah,
bright.
yeah,
Something like that. And I could handle that. Definitely. Um,
yeah. It's interesting in the field of vampire comedies, and maybe and this is me segueing into something we might discuss in the future if you're interested. The After I saw Dark Shadows, and I think vampires and comedy just don't mix. And then I saw something that has spawned a franchise, and I sometimes like to go back to these things and just look at what the kernel was, and that's what we do in the Shadows.
right, but they were committed to
They were
that
committed.
idea. The Dark Shadows movie had a lack of commitment because of the change in tenor that happened among the suits and producers and everything else, and then hastily, I'm sure, rewritten the script.
The hasty part is the thing. I mean, wow, what a just yeah. I think if it had been made a few years later and they had
Yeah.
known it was going to be a comedy, they would have gotten Taika Waititi to make the movie.
Yes.
And he would, as we've seen with Star Wars, he's very good at making straight stuff and comedy and then putting them together. I think Thor
So
Ragnarok, which is a very under-recognized Marvel movie,
yeah, a lot of
may be the best Marvel
I
movie.
enjoyed it immensely, and a lot of fanboys hate it. But
They do,
yes, they do.
but it's so pure. I mean, if you read the comics,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Well,
interactions that are
see,
straight out of the comics.
it's true. It's true. If you go back again, if you're going back to the 60s and 70s, particularly, and you and I are familiar with the
Yeah.
storylines that ran through all of these comics, DC, Marvel, and then it makes more sense, I think. And but for
Mm.
some of these fanboys, they're not old enough to have done that, and of course they're like they're like Yelp reviewers. They empower themselves by crapping on things that they don't understand
Yeah.
or entirely like, so it's totally bad. It's that kind of thing, and I don't appreciate that. Especially when there's something good about a lot of bad movies too.
Yeah.
You shouldn't, as a reviewer, you shouldn't let your audience, or you should let your audience in on that, even if you don't
Mhm.
appreciate the entire movie.
Thor Ragnarok for me, in that sequence of Marvel films, felt like I had every day been putting on an ill-fitting pair of shoes that finally fit.
They finally stretched out.
I
They're
broke
ready
them
to
in.
go. Yeah,
I broke them in, and it's like, oh, these feel great.
yeah,
This is how they always should have felt.
yeah.
And I, being a, a, a trained and dedicated vulgarian, um, I will definitely say that when, and given my bizarre predilections for quote unquote humor, go, I will say that I had a moment when they said something like, "We've got to enter the devil's anus." If you completely straight faced,
Yeah.
that in the theater, I actually raised my fist and I said, "Victory!"
Victory.
Because I felt like my culture had finally won.
Yes, yes. I thought the casting in that movie was perfect for the kind of tone that it took.
Jeff Goldblum.
Oh my
Jeff
God.
Goldblum
Yeah.
is so good.
He's like the erudite, sweet Doctor Evil. I mean, he's the guy. I'm nice. I'm your uncle. Now I'm going to kill you in the arena. He's that kind of guy, and he's perfect. He was absolutely perfect for this
Did
film.
you see any of the Team Thor small, Marvel extra movies that Taika did
I have
leading up
not.
to that?
I have not. No.
I was hoping, because these started coming out well before Thor Ragnarok. They would be attached to the
Sure.
Blu-rays and things like that. Well before Thor Ragnarok came out, and when I first heard that the movie was going to be a buddy comedy between Thor and Hulk, I really thought this would be it. And they did the mockumentary style of Thor stuck on Earth, wandering around New Zealand, and becoming a roommate of this, computer programmer. And it is done with a completely straight face. And it was one of the things I had hoped the whole movie would be like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, in the third one, Grandmaster is the main character
Oh,
that they come back to, and Jeff Goldblum is just having a ball
I bet he
in
is.
this because he moves in with the programmer
Yeah.
and makes him his herald or something, and the
Yeah.
program is completely baffled by this. Really, really worth watching, and a good model for I think where they should go. It's get into all sorts of political nonsense talking about what happened to the Marvel
Sure, sure,
movies,
sure.
but that is, I think, a high watermark of where they clearly should go back to. In For me,
Mm-hmm.
but I like the third Thor movie as well, and it disappointed me that Men in Black International, which I never saw, of course, did so poorly because people like me, didn't go see it. But I was very happy to see Chris Hemsworth
Yes.
in that cast because I think he's so versatile. And it is such a shame. Anthony Mackie had an interesting interview a while ago where he talked about there were no more movie stars. And he said people aren't coming to any of these movies to see me as Falcon. They're just coming to see the costume.
Well, he's not
And
a movie star. I'm sorry. He's a very fine actor. I like
oh,
him.
I think he admits it. No,
He's
I don't
not a
think he's
movie star.
saying. Yeah, but
Robert Downey Jr. playing the Falcon would be a movie star. It's
yes, he
just
would.
there's a difference.
But if you look at the Marvel films, you have very few of them where people are going to see an actor. They're going to see the character.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
And that's a shame because that's not where we were a few years before. And I don't know where I was going with this, but
I don't
You
know,
know,
but I can take it full circle and say,
sure.
but when you went to see Royal Tenenbaums, you are going to see actors.
You're going to see
Yeah,
this. I mean, that poster where they were lined up,
yeah,
and it was almost like the disaster movie posters where the little people's
sure.
heads were in the.
All-star cast. I can see all these people, and at least three-quarters of them I like. So,
I
yep,
get to see them all in one place.
right. Yeah,
And the ones I don't know, I want to learn about because
right.
they're in the company
Of
of
these,
these
yeah.
other people. I think it's a feast of a movie. It's a very dense film.
Hmm.
It's almost all exposition, and it just gives and gives and gives and gives, and I champion it for that. We don't see that enough.
No,
For
even the narrative is not intrusive. It's actually very critical, and it's very J.D. Salinger type, observational about the family and everything, and it seems to work in terms of that. Narration. Some people think narration, well, especially before, movies like Shawshank, but would say, well, narration, that's a cheap way of exposition and blah blah blah. I don't find that to be true if it's well written
you know,
narration.
I'm very grateful I never ran into anyone who proposed that to me.
Yeah,
I've only recently heard criticism of narration, and I think that's because the narrated things I've seen have all been good.
yeah,
It was all well done.
yes, yeah. If it's well written and it's integral, there's not a darn thing wrong with it as far as I'm concerned. Now some cinephiles like the fact that there is very little or no exposition in the film because that makes it more cinematic.
It's show don't tell.
Yes, yes.
Show don't tell.
I guess I understand that as an aesthetic, but it's not exclusive. It shouldn't be exclusive. So,
No, it isn't. And because what's being shown is the personality and perspective and inherent implicit experiences of the narrator.
mm-hmm.
That the narration is not just about the information being delivered, but about how it's being delivered by
Right.
whom.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I like the idea that it was observational, and also they kept showing like the chapter headings of the story of this family, and so you get the first sentence in, and then
And
boom, you're there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I really want to see the book. I wish the book, the novel, existed that they keep
Yeah.
cutting back to. Um,
Um,
uh,
I want to say, well, actually, I'm reading here that they talk about the Magnificent Ambersons as being some of the inspiration for this because of the dysfunctional family aspect of it, as well as the magnificent aspect of it.
sure,
Um,
sure. And Wells, I'm sure, was the Eli Cash to that.
oh, absolutely. The
Yeah,
writer, director, actor,
yeah,
everything,
yeah.
everything artistic. Yeah.
And being sort of next door to the manor born.
Hmm.
That is his
Yeah, I
parents
mean,
still worked.
Wells was absolutely feverish about um, acquiring status and experience and women and accolades and all of these sorts of things. He was very driven to do that, especially in his younger days. I think he was still driven to do it in his older years, but he had been obfuscated so much, at least in this country.
Sure.
But yeah, he was very driven as a young man to get these things because he was a Midwestern kid. He
Yep.
just happened to be
Kenosha.
he just happened to be a freaking genius and recognized it in himself, and others must have recognized it too when he was a kid.
Allegedly, his first words. Do you ever read this? What his first words were? "I am a genius." According to Orson.
I
You
don't.
know, I
It's a great story, and so I won't doubt it.
yeah. Print the legend. Print
Yeah,
the legend.
absolutely.
God, so many good Orson books to get into. Also, Simon Callow stuff's wonderful.
Uh-huh.
Um, but anything
Simon
Simon
Cowell's
Callow is
great,
around,
great TV
yeah,
historian anyway. He's fantastic.
yeah, yeah. Uh, This was terrific.
It is
I know it was all over the map, but I had a really good
because
time.
we're neurodivergent, and this is one of the ways we express that.
It truly is. It truly is. All right. Well, the only other thing I would say is go see Fantastic Mr. Fox,
Oh yes,
also, which is
another Wes
left
Anderson.
out as
Yeah,
a Wes Anderson movie,
yeah,
but it may be the most quintessentially Wes Anderson film made since Royal Tenenbaums.
yes. And for those who don't know, it's a stop action film.
Yeah,
It's just technically a stop action film, which is
yeah.
makes it even. It's very fun.
With George Clooney as a much more functional Royal.
Mm-hmm.
It's who Royal would be if he had the proper medication and counseling.
Yes.
Um,
And didn't lose everything. Right. Uh,
all right. Well, we'll figure out what we're going to do next,
yes.
and we'll be back with you. And then Jewel will be back in about 10 days.
Yes, indeed.
I think. Is there a thing we're doing on the 28th?
I don't know. We'll have to powwow with Jewel on that. I know that we were talking about doing Unforgiven.
We're talking about that, and we
Yeah.
were talking about something that almost is so tempting for me, I would have to be excluded. And I'll pronounce this very carefully because it's a fun movie for me to mispronounce given the seriousness of the people involved.
Uh-huh.
Chisholm.
Oh yes, I know your mispronunciation.
Yeah,
I
I
tend
set
towards that
that up
temptation. Yeah.
videos ahead.
We're talking
So,
about the John Wayne film.
yeah,
Chisholm. Yes.
yeah, John Wayne's Chisholm.
Yeah.
And I think let's let Jewel give it a shot.
Yeah.
I
Awesome.
think it'll be on everyone's lips.
And
Alan, thank you so much.
all over the pit.
I'm Patrick McCray.
And I'm Alan Gallant.
Good night.